And potentially this coming July 1st, the new rules will come into effect, affecting buyers, sellers, and real estate agents
That's a tough
alike.
one.
My team and
You
I
know, I will
jumped
say,
in
when
on this
I
information six
when I was
months ago
selling real
as we
estate,
gave an
a lot of my
unfiltered, raw
deals, I was
perspective on
representing
what it
buyers,
means for
and
the buyer, seller,
I'm
and
right
real
there
estate
with
agent.
buyers because it's like one of those things where most of the time they're first timers, and it's like you said, they're scared, they don't know what to do, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm Jason. Let me guide you down this path and cross this finish line, and it is one of the things where it's like, a lot of people, they save money for a down payment. You're like, hey, what's the down payment? I'm like, oh, 3%. But then there's closing costs, and a lot of people are like, what the hell is closing costs? And then I'm like, yeah, you might need an additional 10,000. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, now we have down payment, we have closing costs, and now they have to pay this realtor, which out of pocket. And that can be kind of tough because you're like, I can barely get in this house, let alone pay this commission,
Exactly.
And I don't know how that's gonna go. I could see a lot of people maybe neglecting to use buyers agents and going directly to the listing agent, which is great because I've been on that side as well, But I don't know if that's gonna be really in the best interest of both sides of the transaction, all the time.
So what's the difference between you said listing agent and a real estate agent?
Yeah. So a listing agent and a buyer's agent. To me, I think they are. If you're a real estate agent, you're a real estate agent, right? You do both. But technically, a buyer's agent typically works predominantly with buyers, people that's looking for a house. A listing agent is the one who provides the product, the house for sale.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I think what we're discussing, and I want your opinion on this as well, as someone that's looking to get into the market. What do you feel about having to pay me to find you a house?
I think I probably would try to skip that part.
You'll do that shit to your own family?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go to you. But I think that
Right.
if that was something that was like an extra struggle on me and whoever I'm buying a home with, I feel like we would probably potentially try and skip that part. Like, how can we skip that part? Because we already got to come out the pocket $50,000. So how can we skip that? But honestly, I already thought that the real estate agent was getting paid.
Yeah, so the way it works right now, like if you're a buyer's agent, you're basically getting paid from the listing side. So as a listing agent, when you go in and you get the contract signed with the homeowner, you're basically getting the entire percentage agreed upon. So for instance, if I go sell you a house, I sell your house, I say, hey, this will be a 6% listing. And mainly the reason why I'm saying a 6% listing is because a portion of that, normally about 2.5% of that 6%, has to go to the buyer's agent. Now the seller is paying this, so this is incorporated into all the seller fees. So as a buyer's agent, as long as I'm bringing the buyer to the house, I'm gonna get paid from the listing side. But now with them trying to make the change and say, hey, no, whoever your buyer is needs to pay you as the buyer agent, it worries me because just like we were saying, it's like, how the fuck? You know what I'm saying?
It's
Y'all gonna
like,
come up with
damn,
that
that's
money,
more
right?
money.
The down payment, the closing costs, and now
Right.
you need to pay the person that's helping you look for
I
it.
mean, it's like if you can find me the best deal, then
Yeah. So
I wouldn't mind.
so what's going to happen, and real estate agents beware, if you're not building your book of business on the listing side, then homeowners or potential home buyers are going to do what you just said. I'm just going to go skip you and go directly with the person who got the house.
Right.
Right. So that tells
But
me.
I wouldn't skip out on my brother.
Nah, you would.
Okay,
It's
so-
cool. Because I don't expect a person to be able to pay me something they can barely afford themselves. I'm here to service and help you and your dreams come true, not to take from you, right?
I like him.
But let me ask you this, because as a listing agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're preparing, the listing package for your client, and you have your marketing and your agreement of what you're going to pay, the buying and the selling, agent. I know every agent's different, but isn't that kind of factored into the price of the home? It's
Yeah.
okay.
I mean that's factor. It depends on your strategy as far as pricing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm of the favor where if the market if things are selling at, let's say, at 550,
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to price you at 550. I'm going to price you at, like, 520,
Yeah.
or something lower, right? So we need to factor in what you need to make plus a potential profit,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's how I
Okay.
see it. But you still got to share some of that side. You know
No,
what I'm
definitely.
saying? Like,
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to kind of getting at. So it's like, well, the price is kind of built in. So technically, the buyer is paying for it because once they get the loan on the home,
mhm.
and it comes in at its appraised value, hopefully that includes what you've already factored in as far as compensation. So
Yeah.
that whole idea, I think, of the buyer not paying anything, where realtors were like, hey, I'll work for you free. It's like, no, technically
Right.
you are, because this has been factored into the price of the house. But my concern is this for you as a listing agent is, if sellers are saying, hey, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent commission, right?
Yeah.
So now instead of 5% or 6% total
I know where
commission,
you're going.
we're at 3% or 2.5 total commission, right? And now you're working both sides
Yep.
for half the money.
That's facts.
How do you feel about that?
I don't like it either.
Okay.
So that's
But-
more work for you.
Well, essentially, yes. Because if I'm representing the buyer and the seller, I can only really have fiduciary duty to one side. And that's another problem, they're trying to address here in California real estate is people double ending a deal working with the buyer and the seller, because you can only be faithful to one person, really, right? There's no way I can give you all the detail and the inside scoop and then be giving him the same shit, right? That's a conflict of interest.
Right. So
in
that's
a
what's
sense.
going on.
So that people do that, and I like
Okay.
it when I get a double end deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody love it when you get a double end deal, but at the same time, I understand, what I'm saying, like, where they're coming from with the rules. And like you're saying now, in that point that you're making, yeah, it's not 6% no more. It's down to like 3% now,
Yeah.
right? And I'm doing double size. And
Yeah.
luckily, if I got a TC or something, I'm having some help, but
Yeah.
that is more. So now it's like, no, I don't want a 3% listing. Give me 4.5 at least.
No, definitely.
To make up for that. So I think it now goes back to more of your negotiating and your overall understanding of what's happening and the changes that's happening.
Yeah.
And the same thing with how AI is coming into real estate too.
No, that.